Hello and welcome to the Integrated Rehab and Performance Podcast. My name is Dr. Nick Curtis and I'm running the show here at the Integrated Rehab and Performance Center in Nashville, Tennessee. Today we have a solo golf podcast episode. This is Golf Podcast episode 39 and we are talking Tiger Woods today. If you're following along with the newsletter, we are just getting through the part 2 of the Tiger Woods series, and the day that this podcast comes out, newsletter subscribers will be getting that part 3 of the Tiger Woods series, where we are just going through the timeline of injuries and surgeries that Tiger went through and talking a little bit about his performance throughout this time, just kind of summarizing his winnings for that year, tournament wins, and cash, things like that. Just showing the kind of evolution of how things had occurred. So what I want to talk about today is the first 2 parts of Tiger's career here that we went over in the initial 2 newsletters. So these were pain and injury that Tiger has underwent from his time in 1994, where he was an amateur golfer, until 2013, when he started to finally get a little bit of low back pain, right? So the timeline here that we are addressing is everything, all the injuries that led up to finally him revealing on the big stage that this low back pain is legit, it's not going anywhere, and it's going to be playing a role going forward. So again, 1994 is when he started his kind of amateur career. In 1996, he had his first surgery, and then all the way up until 2013, 2014 is when that low back pain finally started to really make it kind of reveal itself to the world. So let's talk a little bit about that today. Starting with the timeline, again, we're going to go all the way back to 1996, and this is in the part 1 of the Tiger Woods series, Tiger Woods Case Study Part 1, the first surgery. So Tiger's early career, 1991, 1993, was just crushing his amateur performances, and then 1994, 1996. But during this time, again, he had won 3 consecutive junior amateurs. He had won 3 consecutive amateur championships. He was just crushing. Finally, in 1996, he went professional, and leading up to that 2014, 2013 reveal of low back pain. In 1994, during his amateur career, he undergone his first surgery. This was for 2 benign tumors on his left knee. Now, most likely, these were osteochondromas. So these are benign cartilaginous tumors. From the location of the surgery, the distal, or kind of it being at the knee, the distal thigh, the fact there was 2 of them, they were benign. This tells me that they were most likely osteochondroma. We can probably find the information out there somewhere, but I am going to guess that they were osteochondromas. It's just most likely. What these are, again, they're benign. They are non-cancerous, but they are just excessive cartilaginous growth that eventually ossifies, but kind of known by their cartilaginous end caps. So they're like 2, or in this case, we'll call them 2 bony protrusions at the end of the knee. And again, they're no big deal until they become a big deal, where maybe they're pressing on a nerve, a blood vessel, irritating the tissue around it for different reasons. At some point, people with these benign tumors do need to get them removed because of these secondary issues that they cause. So that was the first time Tiger went under the knife during his amateur career. Why is this important? What we're going to talk about, and kind of an underlying idea of these case study articles, is the idea of regional interdependence. So what that term means is we can have pain and injury in one region of the body that is maybe not necessarily caused, but has factors that exist outside of that region. So a classic example of this would be shoulder pain, where we don't just need to work on the painful tissue of that shoulder, or maybe even just shoulder strength or shoulder range of motion, but we also need to look at the thoracic spine. A lot of times, if people are missing thoracic spine or that mid-back spine extension or rotation, we can put excessive pressure on the shoulder to do motions that are like overhead. Imagine if you're hunched forward and you're trying to carry a heavy weight over your head. If you're hunched forward, you're going to you can't carry that heavy weight with your arms out in front of you. So if you raise your arms while you're hunched over, your arms are going to be your hands are going to be in front of your toes. This is going to bring your center of gravity forward. You'll never be able to hold the heavy weight in that position for very long. So if we're going to do things like a shoulder press, whatever we're doing overhead, we are going to, even if we're hunched over, we're going to ask our shoulders to get over top, or our hands to get over top our center of mass to help balance that weight. If we're hunched over, then we're going to have to get extra shoulder flexion to get there. Now we're putting excessive stress on that shoulder to do something because we are missing thoracic spine or mid-back extension. So if we are putting extra stress on our shoulders for different reasons, like thoracic spine, then the idea of regional interdependence kind of exists. We need to address that thoracic spine if we're going to create long-term solutions to that shoulder pain. Now, why is this important for Tiger? Classically kind of defined by his low back pain. What you're going to find out is Tiger's had extensive work done to his left knee, his left ankle, a little bit on his right knee and his right ankle, and some stuff going on at his shoulder and wrist. But what you're going to find is intense amounts of damage and injury to that left knee, especially starting here with the first surgery on that left knee. Now, the surgery wasn't for an injury necessarily, but again, it is going under the knife, creating trauma in that knee, and what sort of rehab process had to take place that maybe didn't take place to get back to 100%. What I'm saying is there may be a connection between Tiger's extensive injuries around the low back, but not including the low back, that eventually led to the onslaught of low back pain and low back surgeries that had to take place later. Was there injuries, things that weren't completely taken care of, that could change his motor control, his mobility, and force generation, and where he was putting forces through his body that put extra stress on his low back that weren't coming initially from that low back? That's the idea here. First time Tiger went under the knife, 1994, for those 2 osteochondromas to be removed from his left femur, distal femur, suspecting they were osteochondromas. Beyond that, in 2002, that same knee, he had fluid drained from that knee and then a cyst removal. So again, kind of going under the knife, more trauma to that knee, more scar tissue potentially being built up, more maybe subconscious avoidance of putting force and pressure into that knee. If this wasn't rehabbed perfectly, then the nervous system is an impressive beast. It can prevent you, without you even knowing it, from utilizing that knee like you would have in the past. It may protect that knee, different things like that. And if we're not rotating into that knee, or we're trying to take pressure off that knee, we may have started the timeline of increasing the pressure and rotation coming from that low back instead. That's that idea of regional interdependence. So these are some of his initial injuries and surgeries that may have played a role in creating that low back, that kind of chronic low back issue that Tiger eventually started to face. Now, if we go beyond these 2 initial ones, we have 2006, left shoulder pain, 2007, a ruptured ACL. This is a very interesting story. But let's go over some of his kind of winnings up until this point. So he's had some surgeries. He's had a couple injuries, cyst drainage, cyst removal, and then finally in 2006, left shoulder pain that was enough to be, worthy of note. Left shoulder pain, enough severity to make us all aware of it. Now, at this moment, he had won 5 consecutive tournaments. So he was still playing through these issues, but we see different things starting to pop up related to the knee, related to the low back. Can't be sure. Let's see. At this point, Tiger had amassed $81.9 million in prize money. Now, this is just from 2003 to 2014. He went pro in 1996. In these years, from 2003 to 2014, 45 tournament wins, $82 million in prize money, and he had achieved his peak driving average of 316 yards from his career. That was in 2005. Also that year alone, he earned $10.6 million, which is pretty dang close to his highest earning season as well. So this is some of the glory days of Tiger. Now, the 2007 ruptured ACL, it was reported that Tiger had ruptured his ACL while running. This was already highly unlikely. And then Hank Haney in his book reported that Tiger was in a Navy SEALs training house when during a training session was kicked in that left knee, and that was the cause of the trauma that was behind the ACL rupture. So if you don't know this, Tiger's father was in the Navy, and maybe at this point in his career had enough connections to be able to do crazy things like that. He was in a training house with the Navy SEALs. He refused to be marked as an entity. So throughout the training session, people did not know that he was Tiger Woods, or at least didn't know that that specifically was Tiger Woods, and he was treated just like anyone else. And while turning a corner, he had his knee kicked in, and this is likely the cause behind that 2007 left ACL rupture. So no more trauma to that left knee. Now, 2008, we had knee surgery, an ACL repair, and a tibia stress fracture. So the 2008 knee surgery was not for the ACL originally. It was to clear out damaged cartilage in that knee. Later that year, he went under that ACL repair or reconstruction, and then had 2 stress fractures in that left tibia. He missed the remaining 5 months of the season after that ACL repair. So left knee, left knee, left knee. Early on in his career, that lead side knee is responsible for creating but also absorbing so much of the force in that downswing. If we are not comfortable in that left knee, if we don't have the structural stability in that left knee, all those forces are going to get transferred up and down. They're going to go up into that hip and pelvis and into that low back. They're going to go down into that left ankle. Now, is this trauma over and over again, increased forces going into that low back, starting to set the scene for that low back pain? It potentially is. Regional interdependence says that's definitely a possibility. His motor control is changing. The way he's putting force into that left knee, all this is undoubtedly changing after all these surgeries and traumas to that left knee. Now, this creates compensations, changes in proprioception, and again, regional interdependence will do its thing at that point. In 2008, he has a right Achilles rupture. So now his right side Achilles is rupturing. Again, is this due to compensation? There's no way to really know, but he had amassed enough force into that leg, enough trauma, and enough repeated forces to rupture that right Achilles. He ended that 2008 season early, but still maintained the number 1 world ranking spot. So he's still doing his thing. In 2010, he had a neck injury, and this was, within years of that famous SUV car accident. And he had to withdraw from a couple rounds. The MRI reports said that there was cervical facet inflammation, a big thing that chiropractors like to treat. This is, again, just inflammation of how the bones articulate in the spine. There was just inflammation at this articulation point, at these little joints in the cervical spine. And so that was enough to, again, take him away from a couple tournaments. Now, has to do with his left knee, right Achilles? Maybe not. Maybe he does. These forces all get transferred up and down the chain. If he's having to rotate more out of his spine because his knee is doing less, that head and neck, that torso will come with it, which means we get more rotation from that neck. All possible. 2011, we have a left MCL sprain and Achilles tendon strain. So now we have the left Achilles getting strained, and then another sprained ligament in that left knee. In 2011, again, left knee and Achilles. More inflammation of that left knee and Achilles popping up. Likely at this point it was a tendinopathy. And then 2012, left Achilles tendon again popping up. So pain, injury, trauma for Tiger during this time. We can see at this point there's been plenty of surgery, left knee damage. Right Achilles is getting into the game here a little bit. We're starting to see some left shoulder stuff pop up and the neck starting to pop up, but nothing big to report on low back pain up until this time. Once we get to 2013, we have a famous incident of that low back finally starting to really give in, becoming a mainstream issue for Tiger Woods. And then definitely in 2014, the dominoes start to fall. So I think this really sets the stage for our concept of regional interdependence. We've looked at pain and injury to joints surrounding the low back. And I think in the next podcast, we'll get into his timeline of surgeries and trauma directly in that lumbar spine, and how that's affected his winnings, his performance, and things like that. But I think we've got a great sense of what regional interdependence is now, and how Tiger's early career and early half of his career was really setting the stage for that low back pain to really finally start to hit in 2013, 2014, and beyond. That we all kind of know Tiger for, that classic low back pain, who's taken one of the legends of golf and almost defined his career. So we will discuss that in the next podcast going forward. But let's summarize real quick. Regional interdependence. Left knee, right Achilles, left Achilles. Extensive repeated trauma, surgery, and repair in these joints. At this point in the game, how much lost proprioception, how much nociception is going on in that left knee, and how much motor control alterations have occurred because of that left knee. One of the most common injuries after a ACL injury is an injury to the other ACL. I think this highlights a little bit about regional interdependence. When we injure one ACL, we typically see the next year that next ACL goes. This is because athletes are taking so much pressure off of that injured ACL or previously injured ACL that they start putting more pressure on another segment that is the opposite ACL, that opposite knee. Same thing for Tiger. If that knee is taking so much damage, how much pressure is he trying to take off of that knee consciously and subconsciously, especially if those motor patterns weren't retrained appropriately, that is now being transferred somewhere else. And eventually that low back had enough. So we'll leave it at that for today. That is setting the stage for Tiger Woods' low back pain and just saga of low back injuries and surgeries that he will have going forward. Again, we've talked about compensations, regional interdependence, and we discussed a few of the diagnoses and different issues that Tiger probably had: osteochondromas, tendinopathies, and cervical facet irritation, and then not to mention ACL and tendon ruptures. So excited to get going on the second podcast next week, where we will go more into detail on his low back timeline, and then eventually we'll dive into a little bit about what we would have liked to see in his rehab process to address regional interdependence and motor control to make sure that he's comfortable, confident, strong, and stable enough and mobile to access those previously injured tissues without having to compensate and put pressure on other body parts. So thanks for listening. This was Golf Podcast, episode 39, Tiger Woods Case Studies, Part 1 and Part 2. Check out the blog to get the full versions of those articles where you can really get into more details, and sign up for that newsletter. Just throw in your email and name, and you'll get those articles sent right to you every Monday morning, so you can kind of stay on the ball. Otherwise, they are in the archive section of the blog page on the website. The website is integratedrpc.com. That's www.integratedrpc.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you soon. Bye.